Welcome to vintagesf, May Recommendations vintagesf. This month I've been taking some of the recommendations I've had from some of my friends online and here even in the real world and been reading some of those books. Today we're going to take a look at The Essence by Dave Hutchinson. This one came out just in 2025. This is the first book that I've read by Dave Hutchinson. How did I find out about him? Why do I have this book? Well, the Outlaw Bookseller is the first person who introduced me to Dave Hutchinson and talked about this new book. He got a signed limited hardcover edition of it. And then SciFi Scavenger John interviewed Dave Hutchinson and talked about The Essence. So from those two recommendations, I read this book. And it's a very interesting book. It starts out, I would say for the first 60 or so pages, really reading like a spy novel. But our spy is somebody who has lost his memory, has had a breakdown, he's piecing together his life. He's being released from the hospital, has a social worker named Joe. Apparently he's worked for MI6 as an economist, so he's more of a paper pusher, gathering information and presenting to his superiors. He's not an agent that's normally out in the field, but they have a job for him. They want to see if he's ready to work again, and they want him to go to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. There, their contacts have gone silent. They have been giving the cold shoulders to the MI6 agents out there. Now, apparently, our protagonist, his name is Michael Brooks, has a good relationship with some of them out there, so they want to send him out there just to find out why they haven't been talking to us. Have we done something wrong? Is there some sort of leak that needs to be addressed? Michael accepts this mission. He's a little fragile still, but he goes. While there, he has a meeting with the people there and has some information, and he's supposed to just fly right back to London with that information. As he leaves the meeting, he goes to a bar that's on a second level of a building, and something weird happens right outside the bar. Let me read from page 62. By the way, just remember that the social worker assigned to Michael, her name is Jo, and she supposedly is in London. Michael sipped his coffee and resumed looking out the window. Down below, in the middle distance, a stout, well-dressed little old lady was making her way along the street beside the canal, towing behind her on a lead a white West Highland Terrier. And then a little further down the page, down in the street, the little old lady had almost drawn level with the bar. Michael saw that two fit-looking young men in casual clothes were following very close behind her, way too close. He tipped his head to one side. And, continuing a little further down, one of the young men reached into his jacket and took out a huge pair of scissors. In one smooth movement, he half bent down and snipped the dog's lead. The other one opened a big denim bag and dropped it over the dog, picked it up, turned on his heel, and started to walk back the way he had come. A moment later, a man on a motor scooter pulled up briefly. With the bag in his arms, the young man hopped onto the pillion, and the scooter drove off. It had all happened too quickly for Michael to make any sense of it. The young man with the scissors had peeled off and vanished into the crowds. The little old lady was plodding along, still unaware that anything had happened. Michael said, "I think there's just been a..." And then two black SUVs drove up and jerked to a stop outside the bar. All the doors opened and seemingly dozens of large men jumped out. They were all dressed alike in jeans and dark blue wind cheaters and those sunglasses favored by cricketers and security contractors. And then his social worker bursts in from the back of the bar and says, "Michael," she said as she reached him, "you have to go right now." "What are you doing here?" he asked. He thought it was a perfectly reasonable question. "Get up, Michael," she told him. "Those people down there are coming for you." The big men in the wind cheaters were almost at the bottom of the steps. One of them shoulder-charged a passer-by out of the way. Jo grabbed his arm and hauled him to his feet. "Michael," she said, "come with me if you want to live." So this seems a little odd, and it's really interesting to see Jo say that line from many movies and stories, "If you want to live, come with me." We discover that there's a number of factions that are involved here. that are all interested in Michael Brooks. But that's not all. It gets weirder, and it gets into that SF kind of weird. So now I'm going to look at page 99 here in the Essence. This book has 274 pages, so this is just about a third of the way through. And we're starting to learn about something called the Essence. The Essence seems to be unrelated miracles, odd events that occur throughout history. And there's people who chase this, and they call themselves Essence heads. But this is not a laughing matter to them. By the way, the book does have a lot of humorous moments too, but they're within a serious plot. It's just situational type of humor. So we find out this is an ancient thing that's been going on in terms of people trying to identify and understand the essence. The only thing that seems to unite events that seem to be related to the essence, this mysterious event, is that everything starts to look a little bit more like it's black and white, like the color has left the world and then it pops back in. That seems to occur at events, especially events that have happened to be recorded. I'm going to read to you about one event that was recorded just to give you a sense of the strangeness of these events. One of the people who is holding him at this moment tells him the following. I think I told you that it's incredibly rare for someone to witness an event, but it's even rarer to get documentary evidence. He clicked open a file on his computer and sat back on a stool. The window on the screen showed a video of an Amsterdam tourist scene. A cloudy day, a makeshift flower stall beside a tram stop, a canal, crowds of people on foot and on bicycles. Judging by the clothes, it wasn't a particularly warm day. The sound was tinny, distant, the conversation of passers-by and traffic. The camera panned to follow one tall woman as she cycled by, and before it panned back, Michael saw a little family group coming along the pavement, mother and father and a little girl in a bright yellow coat. All of a sudden, something happened to the color balance of the video, as if the light had changed abruptly, and at the same time a strange noise came from the laptop speakers. The viewpoint of the camera dipped and swooped, and he heard someone shout, "What the?" When the image steadied, it was looking at the flower stall. It wasn't much of a flower stall, just a few buckets half full of water with bunches of tulips sitting in them. But as he watched, Michael saw, with a skin-crawling sensation at the back of his neck, all the flowers turn their heads in unison to look straight at whoever was holding the camera. They were all making the same high-pitched screaming sound. It only lasted a few seconds. The flowers stopped screaming, their heads drooped, flopping in all directions, and the color returned to the world. The camera viewpoint swooped around again to show the people shouting and running across the road to see what all the fuss was about. When the camera turned back to the flowers, they were visibly rotting away, and a few moments later, all that was left were some scraps of browning vegetation. Weird little events, but they seem to have some sort of link. Different factions have some different theories. There's some religious theories, there's some scientific theories, and there's some magical theories out there about the essence. Michael finds it hard to believe that they're taking this so seriously. He has a hard time believing that there is something called the essence. As the novel progresses, we have this weird science fiction element married to the spy plot here. And ultimately, it's brought to a big event and a big reveal towards the end of the novel. That said, though, there is ambiguity here. You won't necessarily feel satisfied with what we learn about the essence. I'm okay with that, though. It's mysterious, and sometimes the mystery is better unsolved. Hutchins writes great spy fiction. I think of the TV show and the novels by Mick Herron called Slow Horses. You can probably think of other spy novels as well. This is more the working spy, not the James Bond type of spy. And he also writes great travel sequences. I've been to Amsterdam and I've been through the Netherlands, and there's a lot of great scenes in here and great descriptions of different aspects of the Netherlands, the fields and the canals, etc. I felt like Dave Hutchinson had been right there and was writing about what he knew. And then some of the characters here that we have, the different factions, there's some fascinating little characters here, but there's also some real great major characters as well that are developed. And at the core, Michael is still trying to figure out who he really is. He's lost pieces of himself with this psychotic break, and his last memories don't seem to be too clear before he woke up in the hospital. What has that to do with the whole situation with the essence? And the essence itself, so many weird events that seem to be tied together. And we're talking very strange and odd things that have happened. I guess you could say perhaps this is a marriage of spy novels and the X-Files, or perhaps the Twilight Zone. I thought it really was a good mashup or a good union here. Hutchinson is a good writer. I really enjoyed this. In fact, this has been my favorite read so far in Recommendation May. I give it 9 out of 10. Highly recommended. I have one more novel by Dave Hutchinson in my shelves now. It's part of a Europe series. I can't remember. I think it was called Fractured Europe. I'll put it down here if I made a mistake. And it's a series of novels. I think they follow seasons. I'm really looking forward to getting into that to see if his writing is as good as it was in The Essence. How about you? Have you read any Dave Hutchinson? What do you think of his work? Are there other novelists out there that do a great job of marrying spy fiction with science fiction? I'd love to know. Until next time, keep reading.